This is the fate I choose. One woe treads upon another's heel. So fast they follow. This is the way things were meant to be. This is how the story was always meant to end. So what was I still fighting for? I no longer had an answer to that question, so I handed Quince his little black book and went to the woods. When I arrived at the creek's edge, I came with fantastic garlands of crow flowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples crowned all around my hair. I wanted to show Quince that I was not afraid, that this was not me being backed into a corner, but emerging triumphant, solution in hand. The world of Elsinore is better off without me, and I am not afraid to die. Not anymore. So I plunged into the water. Feet first, eyes closed. It was only a moment before my skirts were drenched and I was sinking too quickly to turn back. Denmark will push on without me. Fortinbras will invade, the crown will fall, and all will die in the ensuing fire. But out of the husk of this world, something new is reborn. Because Fortinbras, that golden prince, is fit to rule Denmark in a way none of us ever really were. Fortinbras leads the unification of Denmark, Norway, and eventually Sweden. The three countries unite together for the first time in centuries. There is peace. Fortinbras often speaks of the burning of Elsinore, that horrible catastrophe which claimed all of our lives. He uses it as a warning bell with which to rally all under his rule. Let us never have another Elsinore, he proposes, though he was the one who shackled my country in the end. For once, there is little infighting. There is little to fear. The wealth of all nations continues to rise. Those few straggling survivors of Fortinbras' invasion are permitted to remain at Elsinore and hold no court, where they lived out their lives in silence and mediocrity. And no one within Denmark speaks of me, Hamlet, or anyone else again, save in whispers told to children too young to have witnessed the invasion firsthand. No one remembers us. There is one grave into which they spill all our ashes. It sits at the far edge of the royal graveyard. We bought this peace with our lives. I hope the future is a better one because of it. I hope. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. Gone from Elsinore, my father's worst fear. The gates closed behind us forever as we gathered into our singular carriage, all our worldly possessions strapped to the top. We traveled for 2 days until we reached the outer limits of Denmark's borders, a small castle of no repute, crumbling away into snow and dirt. This is the land my father was given to carry out the rest of our quiet lives. We have no servants, no animals, only these broken stone walls and us. At first, father uses his connections to borrow a little money where he can, but he knows we cannot pay them back, and in time, that coin dries up. We learn to do honest work. Laertes chops the wood that feeds the fire. I gather what roots and food I can find from the forest to feed us and learn to set traps. For a while, it is a good, warm life, for what little it's worth. Every night, Laertes strums his lute as father and I drift off to sleep by the fire. I grow close to Laertes. I get to know father in a way I never did. He talks about mother more. He talks about the love they felt for one another, and the love he feels for us. Father clasps his hands in mine and swears to me that someday soon he's going to get us out of here, somewhere better. He says it with tears in the corner of his eyes, and I can tell he means it. But one morning, after a particularly cold December night, Father wakes with a cough. It does not improve. Soon he lies in bed, unable to stand without shaking so hard he looks like he might collapse altogether. Laertes and I bring him all that we can. Every medication, every ointment. We sell a few of my dresses to bring the local physician to have a look at Father. For the first time in my life, I pray. I don't know who's listening, so I pray to Mother Mary. I beg her to keep Father alive, offer her anything she likes, anything but his life. Anything. And it seems like someone is listening to my prayers. Father's health improves slowly. He begins to sit up a little. He begins to eat. We even take him outside when spring comes. He begins to talk of us leaving this place and going somewhere better. South to Bohemia, perhaps, or even further afield. But one morning, when I go to rouse him, he is cold. The body is stiff, eyes sunken, skin stretched too taut over the bones. I have to look away. Laertes holds me tight. We bury him in a little patch of green moss close to the castle's walls. I try not to resent our exile as I look to the south towards Elsinore's walls, and I fail. After Father's death, it is hard to imagine ever being happy again. Years pass, and Laertes and I frequently go months speaking to no one but each other. We are surprised to find we do not miss the company. Both of us marry, eventually. Laertes meets a small woman with a gentle smile and a quiet nature, a shepherd's daughter. She makes a pleasant counterpoint to his stormy attitude. And I am married to a dark-haired man with a gift for poetry, a baron's son. Luckily, this one is far more kind than Hamlet ever was. Laertes offers him everything we have as a dowry. Our spouses come to live in the crumbling castle, and slowly we begin to fix it up. There are new doors and windows now. With all of Father's connections a mystery to us, this is our home, now and forever. A few chickens, cows, and pigs make do in the front yard, and soon they are joined by children who like to chase them around. This is not a noble life. This is not the life I would have chosen for myself, and it isn't the life Father would have wanted us to lead. But in the end, we are, if not happy, something very much like happiness. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. No others were qualified to sit the throne of Denmark. It is time to let someone competent rule. Who better than the woman who has seen all possible fates? Who else can have the power I hold? I was once Cassandra, cursed to warn people and have them reject me. Now I am Tyche, the goddess who makes her own destiny. Fortinbras meets me in Elsinore's throne room, and for the first time we are able to speak as peers. He agrees the war is senseless, so I cede him his little swamp and we end it. Let him have it all. Men's pride will always be the end of them. Denmark is smaller now, certainly, but all the richer, as Norway turns its focus to Sweden and the two tear each other apart. And all I had to do to avert that fate was listen. The nobility are angry about taxation, about the flow of capital and power away from them. So I invite them to meet with me and I hear their grievances. At first, they think me unfit to rule. They argue over who ought to be king among them. But averting war with Norway is a point in my favor. Unproven though I might be, I am a queen. These days I am free of anger, free of ego or envy. I feel nothing at all. I have nothing to lose. I have lost it all 100 times before. And in that, the nobles find respect for me. Claudius had moved to centralize power within the Danish crown and away from nobility. But now, I establish a system of checks and balances to ensure all parties have equivalent say. No king should have the power to sway a kingdom and begin a war as he pleases. I've already seen the kind of bloodshed which lies down that route. Having earned their great respect, the nobility endeavored to work with me as much as possible. We are able to enact incredible change, things I never imagined possible when Claudius ruled alone. Now and then, I hear rumors and insults. People think me cold. They whisper of the deaths which plagued our court, the deaths which made me queen. They believe I ought to grieve more than I do. They wonder if a woman of my standing should ever have been made queen. They wonder what happened to Ophelia, the girl. Not Ophelia the queen. I know what became of the girl. Her future was stolen from her. She was forced to endure hell, and she came through it, alive, but only half human. Over time, those whom I called friends pull away from me. They cannot relate to the world I live in now, and I don't ask them to. I must do what is best for my country, even if that means leaving my old life behind, even if that means I weather this alone. Out behind the castle, a tiny row of new white graves line the small hillock to the north. As the years pass, they too grow mossy and sink into the earth, joining the others. And memories of those who are buried beneath them fade into obscurity. I do not go to visit them. I do not want to remember. I do not want to run into those who remain. I do not want their faces to linger. Living and dead commingle in a tiny box which I bury somewhere deep in my heart. The box of the Elsinore that was. From now on, my life will be focused on the Denmark that will be, the great nation to which all others will aspire. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. Hamlet and I have been formally betrothed, and as our wedding day dawns, I am awoken to be dressed. A dozen maids come for me, bearing my gown, silk slippers, a thick white veil, and all manner of scented oils and tools. They cleanse my hands, my feet, my body. They brush my hair and weave flowers into it. No expense may be spared for Hamlet's bride. I sit there like a doll, allowing them to push and pull me any way they please. I am pliant in their hands. They say Laertes has gone quite mad with fury. After Laertes and father were ordered out of the castle, they left. I do not know where they went. I know nothing would have changed Hamlet's mind. 2 decades of hatred and mistrust doesn't vanish in 4 short days. I love my brother more than anyone in this world. I tell myself that his life is enough. I tell myself I had no other choice. I try not to think of him somewhere cold and lonesome, hating me. Once, I tried to send a letter. Just once. I entrust a chambermaid, give her an entire pouch of gold for her trouble if she'll only take my scrap to the post in town. But nothing ever returns. I convince myself that Laertes read my letter but was unable to reply. It's easier to sleep that way. One morning, 3 months later, I awake, dress, and am led to the chapel altar. There, Hamlet stands ready to greet me, resplendent in red and gold, wearing his father's crown. He gives me a slight bow and a smile. I can tell from the glow on his face that he's never been so pleased to see me. Before him, a row of the most powerful men among the nobility sit, watching, waiting. They stare at me with cold eyes. They have no great love for this union. To them, it is a transaction to ensure the Danish crown remains intact. And it is an uneven match at that. The poor duke's daughter, no true nobility, not quite the riches they'd hoped to reap in making Hamlet's marriage. They will always be watching over us. Hamlet is not a strong king. Not yet. They will drive his actions at every turn. We will never be free. I will never be free. Before this wedding, Gertrude came to speak to me. She told me something I'll never forget. She said that there is no such thing as happiness one finds in marriage. That this life is suffering from start to finish, punctuated by fleeting moments of bliss. Love merely stops the bleeding a while. She's right, I think. Hamlet and I face one another. Hamlet reaches out and takes my hand. He squeezes tight. The message is clear. I am not alone. I hope I made the right choice in the end. I want to believe I did. I want to believe that this is the best possible world I could live in, with the greatest chance of happiness. Hamlet lifts the veil from my face. We both turn to the altar. Light pours through the windows, passing through my gown and veil. I feel ethereal, like I could float away. After all, it's a beautiful day for a wedding. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. Today I am going to a lovely party. It is being hosted by the Queen. She's been warm and generous to me lately. She will come to mingle with me before the party, and we'll laugh together, discussing our plans for the night. Laertes is home in Elsinore for good now, and he and Father will be there. They will come to see me at the party tonight. Now that he and Brit are to be wed, I've caught him with Father debating the dowry long into the night. Father will tonight tell Laertes all he once knew of love, how to be kind, how to disagree charitably, how to grow together. Quince and his players will be there too, providing endless merriment as the night goes on. Hamlet and Claudius have made up as friends. Both of them will be there tonight, where they'll announce the first dance. Hamlet will offer me his hand. It might have trembled once, but not anymore. And when I take it, he'll look me in the eye and give me a wink almost brief enough to miss. Then he'll pull me towards him. This is the real Hamlet, the constant joker, the man I've known all my life. As we move and spin, we pass Horatio and Bernardo, Horatio dancing with ease, Bernardo watching his feet in a panic. I stifle a giggle. Against the wall, Britt nurses a goblet of wine and watches us with a small, quiet smile. The night comes to its close by the fire, where wine and cheese are shared freely until we're all stuffed. After I fall into bed that night, warm and happy, I wake to sunshine. I dress and make my way to the pond. The flowers are in full bloom. Ours is an eternal summer. No winter's frost can ever touch the pond's surface, or kill the hundreds of beautiful flowers which line its edge. I peer into the water and see myself looking back at me, and at once I shriek. The Ophelia in the water is haggard. Her eyes are sunken into the holes in her skull. Her hair is a ragged mess, framing her face like a dark cloud. She wears a white shift and sits in a shadowy cell. Her nails are split and bloodied, where she has scratched at stone trying to escape the darkness. Whispers come from the water. Poor girl. Gone quite mad. Kept here for life. Lost cause. Slowly they grow, increasing in volume and number until the voices are screaming at me, booming through the water. The Ophelia in the water looks back at me and begs me to reach through, pulling her into my world. Her bloodied hand extends to me, but I can't. That would shatter the wall between us. That would shatter everything. I rip my gaze away. The whispers cease. Above me, white clouds drift, immaculate in a blue August sky. I wasn't hearing voices. I was hearing crickets. Crickets and frogs in the tall grass. Everything is as it should be. I mustn't spend a spare moment thinking of that other Ophelia, the one locked in that horrible place. I feel for her, but she isn't me. Besides, tonight I am going to a lovely party. Laertes is home in Elsinore for good now, and he and Father will be there. They'll come to see me at the party tonight. Now that he and Britt are to be wed, I've caught him with Father debating the dowry long into the night. Quince and his players will be there too, providing endless merriment. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. I alert the War Council to Elsinore's undefended gates, and we are able to rally in time to mount a defense. Rather than burning Castletown on his way to the Great Hall, Fortinbras finds cohorts of men standing at the ready, weapons drawn. And despite his best efforts, when he is thrown deep into the underbelly of Elsinore's dungeons, he does not escape again. For all our quiet nature, when backed into a corner, Danes have always risen to defend our country with unrivaled ferocity. Norway is deflected successfully, but not forever. Fortinbras must be returned to his people, and returned he is, for a price. But soon Sweden, emboldened by Norway's falter, moves in to attack us anew. Claudius uses an impending war to turn his image around with the Danish nobility, and summon troops from them. So, when all three countries clash in full force, our masses are equal. Across the salted cliffs leading up to Elsinore's walls, war rages. And that fight, unceasing, consumes everything each country had, until we are forced to assume debts from anywhere we can. Father, Laertes, and I settle in for several long winters. We watch as Denmark's coffers are drained of gold, day by day. Eventually, the war becomes a backdrop to our own personal hardships. Things which had once been luxuries around the castle disappear overnight. Hamlet is wed, with pomp and celebration to Brit. All this for the price of more men, more horses, more coins from the pockets of the House of Brockenhams. Once lavish feasts become a simple dinner of stew and bread. We celebrate festivals quietly, internally, and do not throw extravagant galas once common to Queen Gertrude's tastes. At his wit's end, father has my finest gown sold to pay for a dowry for me, then offers my hand in marriage to the son of a wealthy family, a man whom I have never met. But my husband-to-be is killed a week later on the war front, a dark-humored blessing. Claudius taxes his countrymen to the greatest extent possible. They starve. We live. We live. That's what's most critical, isn't it? We live. We wait out the rest of our lives together as one castle, as one extended family. Everyone survives. The first time Fortinbras attacked, I knew that was the future I wanted to see. Through my own labor, I was able to make it come true. I had that power. It is far better to have survived, intact and unhappy, than to have died at each other's hands, right? As long as we few are still alive, as long as my small tribe still lives, we can find some comfort in one another. This life is not glorious. Denmark slips more and more into obscurity as the shadow of war shrinks away. We are a poor nation. As long as I live, we will always be a poor nation. Let it slip away then, into dusty books and faint memories. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. I follow Othello out of town. He leads me to his horse, tied up at the last trough before the open road. He gives me done, rough-made clothes and a cloth to cover my hair and face. We both know I cannot be seen, and I don't look like anyone else in town. When the others realize I'm gone, scouting parties will be sent to follow in our tracks. But they will give up around Denmark's border, and we are far swifter, traveling day and night alike. Othello has a mind to head to Venice. As a massive trade city, it'll be simple for us to hide there. So we continue south, and I see lands I've never seen in my life. I never dreamed such places existed. On the path, we encounter travelers. Sometimes they threaten us, other times they ignore us, but frequently they offer to break bread with us, together around a fire. One night, we cross paths with a traveling priest. He is headed to a small abbey in the far north. He asks if we are wed. Othello and I sheepishly look at each other and admit we are not. That evening, the priest walks us through exchanging our vows. Binding our hands together with rough cord, he whispers a prayer over us. I have never felt so loved or so wanted. His eyes are the last thing I see before I fall asleep that night. His arms wrapped tightly around me. Othello, my husband. A month later, we reach Venice. Enormous white buildings drop steeply off into the waterways, boats zipping to and fro. It is here where Othello and I begin our new life. I write a letter to Elsinore, addressed to just one person, Horatio, the only one of them I can trust not to come looking for me in the end. Several months later, much to my surprise, I receive a reply. I was once a popular man in Venice, believe it or not. Don't live in squalor, let your friends help you. Love, H. Attached is an address for a tavern in the center of town. We visit it and inquire about Horatio. we are instantly given a small room in the tavern's attic, warm and dry and modest. I am put to work serving wine and ale to the many soldiers and traders who call the tavern their mainstay. Othello, having grander ambitions than pouring drinks, joins the Venetian Republic as a soldier. At first, he does as little as he can and comes home to me by the time the sun sets each night. But over time, he's gone longer and longer. He rises through the ranks quickly. His commanders lean on him for his insight, and he has the sharp kind of mind and level-headed intellect that few men possess. One day, he's gone later than usual, and I run out into the streets to find him. I don't have to go far. I see him standing in the middle of a marble square, calling up to a woman who leans over a balcony above him. Desdemona. She is as beautiful as I imagined she would be. Her eyes are bright, and as the fading sunlight shines through her, she is radiant. I see the way he looks up at her. I cannot hear their conversation, but it is clear that this is not the first time they have spoken, and it will not be the last. As much as I speak reasonably, as much as I beg, as much as I weep, Othello has laid eyes on her, and everything Quince warned me about begins to come true. He loves her more each day and me less. But that's the thing about human hearts. One moment you can be as certain as stone, and the next, with just a slight shift, one look of those bright eyes, everything has changed. Eventually I can bear it no more. I tell him to go and to be with her. And to his credit, he does not lie to me or beg me to keep him. He nods, kisses me goodbye, and leaves without another word. But I stand alone. I need no one. I work at the tavern and grow to like my small, comfortable, well-defined life. I even grow to love it sometimes, in the quiet moments. For years I loved a man who loved me more than life itself. A love to surpass the stars. A love which outshone even Desdemona. I will never forget that love. But it's time for me to move on, and I do. Venice is a magical city, a breathing, living city. It is full of art and life and God and the smell of the sea. I find my own comfort here. At least it's not Elsinore. At least it's not Denmark. I will never know what became of my family at home. Whether they were happy, whether they resented me for leaving. I'm sure they did. At least at first. But I made my choice. And it was worth it. Every single day of it. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. I join Grace's crew, and my old life disappears into the wake of her new vessel. Life at sea is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. One night, the ship is rolling to and fro, and I pray to anyone who's listening I won't be thrown overboard. The next night, everything is calm. The full moon shines upon the deck, and the other members of the crew teach me to play cards. We drink until my head is fuzzy and I curl up asleep below deck. I soon become fast friends with the crew and learn about their lives. I'd thought them crusty and crude, but they welcome me with open arms and gladly call me their friend. Grace takes up teaching me the ins and outs of using a sword. I'm a surprisingly quick study. Soon I'm able to disarm even men of the crew who have fought for years. I am not strong, but I am quick, and Grace says there's value in that. The first time we are boarded by an enemy vessel, I freeze up. I nearly lose my head until one of my crewmates calls out to me and I am able to find the guts to stand my ground and fight. Afterward, Grace approaches me and catches me in a firm embrace. I never knew what it was to be proud like this. We sail the world for 3 years, pillaging what cargo we might and selling it off the coast of Ireland to whomever will take it for coin. When we're not sailing, we retire to one of Grace's coastal castles and drink and flirt and tell stories. Sometimes, Grace confides in me about her past husbands, about her life before piracy, about her fears for her crew. She worries for them like a mother over her children. We stay up long into the night together. We know each other more thoroughly than I've ever known anyone. I've never felt like I was home before now. All of this comes to a sudden halt one morning when we are far out at sea. The day is foggy, and we are spotted by an English privateer before we see them. We do our best to flee her, but she gains on us. Not long afterward, her crew boards our deck, swiftly defeats us, ties us up hand and foot, and lines us up on the deck. They slit our throats one by one, or make us walk the plank for their entertainment. By that evening, only Grace and I are left alive. I have told them of my noble blood to buy us time. There, in the darkness, with our heads close together, I hear Grace crying for the first time in my life. I've never been so frightened. She inches closer to me, and her hands bound in front of her reaches out to clasp my own hand with her fingertips. I feel her hot breath on my face. Then she whispers something I never expected to hear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry the adventure didn't last longer. The both of us lie there in silence, our fingers touching until dawn breaks and our enemies come for us. They decide to slit our throats too. I watch as they cut Grace's throat. Thankfully, I only have to listen to the sounds of her death for a moment before their hands are on me and I too am gone. This life was a good one. Like Grace, I wish it could have lasted a little longer, but none of us know what time we have left on this earth. I will never know what became of my family at home. Whether they were happy, whether they resented me for leaving, I'm sure they did. At least at first. But I made my choice. And it was worth all 3 years. Every single day of it. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. The morning I depart Elsinore is cold and dreary. I do not know where I am being taken. The cart has been arranged on my behalf. It is only late that evening, when my carriage arrives in a small border town, that I realize where I am going. Home. At least, it is my family's home. A small manor with crumbling walls, hardly an intact window, nothing to burn in the hearth. It is all that remains of our house's once great estate. Here I am to live out my life in silence, unopposed to our new ruler. And for 2 years I do. I linger. I sell most of my fine gowns and hire men to patch the windows and walls. Slowly the manor home comes together. It regains its former loveliness. But even when intact, it is not my home. It is my father's home. The one Laertes and I never lived in. And nothing remains of father here. So, it can never be mine. One day, a messenger arrives. I learn that the new queen has sent for me, Queen Birgitta. She claims she only wishes to talk, but I don't know what to believe anymore. I have seen Brit cut my gut open, spilling my blood upon the ground. And I have seen her kinder than I could ever imagine. So, rather than obey her summons, I flee to the south. I take little with me, save for my only mare, her saddle, and some jewelry to sell. I don't know why. Perhaps because I'm a coward. Because now, if Brit slits my throat, I will never again have a second chance at life. I continue south as long as I can. I make it eventually to Navarre, my mother's country, the land where she was born. Here in Pamplona, I blend in far better than I ever did in Denmark. There are men and women as dark as me, and darker still. Song and dance fill every hall and doorway. After one day in the sunburnt city, I feel my body in full relief. Yes, I think this is home. When I run out of jewelry to sell, I find work as a lady's maid at a splendid estate on the edge of town. My Lady Margaret is a stern woman, but not unreasonable. At night, I walk the lively streets alone. I peek in at every window. I meander wherever my wants take me. I drink and I love whenever and whomever I please. I take my time, a tardy explorer, like King Hamlet's spirit wandering the walls, like a fairy sprite made of dust, never alighting permanently on anything or anyone. Now and then, I think upon the horrible fates all at Elsinore came to in the end. I wasn't able to save them. My family, my friends. Denmark has been thoroughly transformed. I hear they moved the court to Copenhagen. Elsinore Castle now lies dormant and shuttered. But I escaped with my life intact. And that's what matters, isn't it? At least, that's what I tell myself when caught in lingering memories of those I left behind. It is not a perfect life. It is far from free of hardship. But it is wholly, thoroughly, blessedly mine. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. Let them all tear each other apart. I'll be out having fun. Rosie, Gilda, and I meander from roadside tavern to tavern at first, making our way nowhere in particular. Every day is the same adventure. What is this tavern selling? Who's telling interesting stories? Who is compelling enough to warrant a closer look? And I love it. I get to know Guildenstern better than I ever did in Elsinore, and I see Rosencrantz through new eyes too. When we run out of gold, they seem to conjure it up as though by magic. They'll do just about anything for a bit of coin. Anything to keep us on the move. To where? Where are we going? It doesn't matter. I'm drunk, and I don't even care where we are. Whenever I see Quince's maddening grin before me in my mind's eye, I drink and it disappears. Whenever I think about my father's corpse stuffed under a staircase, I drink, and it's gone. And whenever Hamlet's dark, worried eyes rise up like a vision before me, peering into me, I drink again, and longer, and deeper, until I can't. It's still summer, so when we cannot afford a room at the inn, and none of the local fireside caravans will have us, we sleep in the fields. On one of these blustery summer nights, as the two of them lie sleeping, I sit alone and face the moon, and think about where we are. We've had something strong that evening. My fingers are tingling, my cheeks still warm and flush with it. I feel uniquely alive. I sense that some great and distant power is looking down at me, willing me to be free. to experience the world I never knew before. Don't I deserve this freedom? Didn't I earn it? Have I not suffered enough? And yet, I feel something dark, deep in the pit of my stomach. I cannot outrun this pain. I cannot drink it away or outwalk it. It is always beside me. Occasionally, at bars, we hear snippets of information. The prince and king are dead. My father is dead. Fortinbras now rules us. To peasants who make their living in the fields, what difference does it make who sits on a throne 100 miles away? One day in autumn, we are lost and off the path. We come to a pond. It is a brisk day. The sky is gray and cold, the grass a dark yellow. As we stop to rest a while, I catch sight of myself in the water's surface. I look nothing like the Ophelia I knew before. My eyes are gaunt and hollow, my body is thinner than it's ever been. This is not the version of myself I know. This is not what freedom looks like, I think. I don't know how to tell Rosie and Gilda, but somehow we've been traveling long enough together that they simply know. One morning, Gilda comes up behind me and places a hand on my waist and leans into me. Tired of gallivanting? I explained to her everything I've been feeling. The pain I can't run from, the sorrow I can't drink away. She thinks a moment, and then a grin spreads over her.
You know, the one adventure we've never tried,
she says,
is living unadventurously.
At the next inn we come to, we don't ask to hear a story or put down coin for a drink. Instead we ask, where might we set up a home? Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. I helped deliver Hamlet safely into Fortinbras' hands. Even if others perished, I think Hamlet's soul found peace that day. Hamlet doesn't understand how to rule on his own. He's never had the head for it. But he's damn well willing to try. I see a fire in him I have never seen before. It ignites him from within, spurring him on. He has been called to something. The most sinister among them label him the player king, he who sits and deliberates and plays at ruling but rarely gives his command. In the meantime, Norway consumes us. The price of peace is our undying fealty to Fortinbras. Shortly, Sweden joins us in chains. When autumn arrives, we answer to a different crowd, though we are intact in spirit. Denmark isn't Denmark anymore. But what I did, it was the best choice, was it not? Hamlet's father was avenged. Hamlet rose to the throne which was stolen from him all those months ago. And with Fortinbras over Hamlet's shoulder, the people will no longer suffer beneath incompetence as they did under Claudius. I often see Hamlet and Fortinbras walking together in the gardens, deep in conversation. Fortinbras cares for Hamlet. I can see it. They are far more alike than I could ever have imagined. This hot-headed invader and the young man whose world he shattered. Brit and Hamlet are wed before a crowd of hundreds. As Hamlet stands at the altar, his hands intertwined with hers, he looks out into the crowd. He is searching for something, scanning faces, and then his eyes find mine, and he smiles a small, winter. I walk the gardens daily, even still. I don't mind the cold. One morning, I am surprised to come across a soldier climbing out of the frozen pond near the grounds. He did not know the path's extent, and the ice split beneath his feet. Without thinking, I strip myself of my cloak and surcoat, and with my meager weight pull him as far up the bank as I can. His feet find purchase, and he stumbles up onto the shore. Safely back in the great hall, warming his calloused fingers before the fire, he introduces himself as Ferdinand, and asks me my name. But I have seen the sigil of the Norwegian crown on the front of his tunic, so I refuse to give it. He is plenty more. I live in there, alone. Still, he comes to see me the next day, and the day after that, and every day for weeks, always strolling around the grounds. What kind of soldier has so much free time? When he sees me reading on a bench, he brings me books of Norwegian poetry. When he hears me humming, he asks me to sing for him. He is a flatterer, this Ferdinand. But I cannot help myself. I find his simple infatuation endearing. One morning, my father sees us out on a stroll, and he freezes up in surprise.
Ophelia,
He says to me later, pulling me aside,
when did you become acquainted with King Fortinbras's brother, pray tell?
Fortinbras's brother? Not just Ferdinand. Prince Ferdinand. That he kept it secret is not surprising, given his unpretentious nature. Perhaps he never considered it. Prince Ferdinand, as it turns out, came to Elsinore to support his brother in the unification effort. I don't want to love another politician, so I guard my heart against him. But slowly, winter turns to spring, and each time Ferdinand comes to take me for a walk, I find my resolve weakening. When February comes, he asks my father for my hand in marriage. My father, of course, turns to me. I like him, father, I say, laughing. Truly, I do. Fortinbras cares not whether his brother marries beneath his station. The relationship between our three nations is ironclad. He gladly grants us his blessing. By the time the flowers are blooming, Ferdinand and I marry in the grounds we love so dearly. Neither of us was ever much for the church. Some find it scandalous. We don't mind. But now the future lies before us. Ferdinand was never meant to stay in Elsinore. Now he makes preparations to go to Kalmar, to assist in Sweden's integration. He demands my father and brother stay behind. After all, they remain far more loyal to that faded old world than I do. They belong in Elsinore. Ferdinand assures me that Kalmar is not so different. Another country, yes, but very alike. And so we pack our things, and 1 month after our wedding day, we set forth. I have to believe that the world I'm leaving behind is a strong one. At the same time, leaving Elsinore with a man who knows little of my old life is strange. I come close to telling him of those lost days I spent, when time repeated over and over again, when I thought I was going mad. But he wouldn't understand. No one could. Time to close this book of horrors and open a new one with fresh, unyellowed pages. And I left others behind. Father, Laertes. It feels as though the closing of my old life has cut me in two. But it's time to abandon the old and grow with the new. Only by forgetting the dead do we have a chance at reaching for life. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. I will make no choice. I will keep Quince here in this hell with me forever. I cast the book into the fire of the great hall. It burns, but nothing comes of it. When Fortinbras's men advance on Elsinore and time resets, the book is there, on my bedroom table. Then I clutch the book to my chest for weeks and lie in bed. Every 4 days, the castle burns to the ground. Every 4 days, I wake up again. At first, Quince would come into my room and threaten me, scream, shout, anything to be frightening. He would cast long shadows on the floor or summon illusions to whisper my name. Then, when I refused to do anything other than stare at the floor, he began to beg. That was more frightening. To see such a powerful man being reduced to tears, a limp figure kneeling on the floor, clutching my hand and weeping. But even then, I knew precisely what it was. A ruse designed to extract some pity from me. I have none, not for him. Elsinore is no more than a lifeless, empty shell to me now. I've walked its halls for what feels like 100 years. Weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable. I can never leave, and so long as I refuse to use the book, Quince can't move on either. He needs it. He needs it to leave this world behind. I will not allow him to cause any more pain, to hurt anyone else the way he's hurt me. Even if it means I must endure the anguish he imparts on me 1,000 times. Even if he kills me and rips my skin from my bones or turns me into pulp. Even if he drowns me or has me stabbed by my brother or has my father tear my eyes out with his bare hands. I will never give up this book to him. Never. He can be my sole companion in this void of our eternal creation and destruction. My companion. And my prisoner. Farewell, Elsinore. This is the fate I choose. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. In the end, I come to understand what Elsinore truly is. A box filled with puppets. A street show for fools. Each day, the puppets come out of the box. A new story is told. This one beats that one over the head. This one sleeps with that one. The puppets are swapped for each new tale to keep it fresh and interesting, to hold the crowd's attention. But at the end of the day, all the puppets go back into that quiet wooden box. All of it returns to the same point from which it began, and there is no escaping it. Once I begin to see the frayed ends of the world, I can't unsee them anymore. Once I see people as those puppets, I can't understand them as fully human. All the love and hate I feel for them has vanished, to be replaced with nothing. I kill them senselessly, intentionally, with a cat-like boredom I did not think I had within me. Like a child picking apart an insect to find out what's inside it. I have cut down everyone in Elsinore to find out what happens when all pretensions fall away. Now, Quince offers me something far more interesting. The chance to close the puppet box forever and visit other attractions. He asks me to come with him, to see other worlds, and I gladly accept. It is far too late to do otherwise. I can't go back, not after knowing what I know now. He opens a doorway in the air, a door which never before existed. We step through and we are somewhere else entirely. A world full of towering steel and screeching iron monsters. And from there, a dozen more worlds after that. He shows me things no human has ever seen. He treats me as his equal. He finds my confusion about these new sights endlessly fascinating. I cannot begin to describe the places I go, the strange people and creatures I meet. But in every world, the book grants us the power to imprison them and pick them apart. I've seen countless bloody and unnatural ends, brought on by lust, by greed, by compassion. I've witnessed destruction wrought by the very stars themselves, which I thought once were mere fixed illusion, until I'd been to them. My curiosity is endless. With each day, I feel I grow closer to understanding the very soul of the universe. Its nature is apathy, its cycle is death and rebirth. And so we, too, carry on. I once thought Quince was horribly cruel. Now I realize the way I saw him was naive. I am glad to leave my old life behind. I had no idea how silly and simple it was, how utterly meaningless in the grand design. I talked like a child. I thought like a child. Now Quince has given me the chance to put aside childish things. Let us embark on this endless wandering together, this man and I. Farewell, Elsinore.